Hello guys and girls listening to this is Rija, and today we're gonna check r/EntitledParents. But before we do, please take a look at this beautiful artwork. It was sent to me by Nat. Thanks a lot, Nat. I love it, I really do. And yeah, if you have an artwork or something you want to share with me, well, you know where to find me. And also guys and girls, we are about to reach 2,000 subscribers, which is amazing. Thanks a lot, like I don't know how to thank you enough. So without further ado, let's start. The name of the story is Entitled Parent / Teacher Lets Her Kid Destroy My Sketchbook. At the time of this almost inevitable encounter, I was 8 years old and in 3rd grade. A little backstory on my experience in this school and this teacher. Since I was 4, I had many problems getting along with other people. I wasn't rude or talkative, I was just really quiet and reserved. I have extreme anxiety and had anxiety attacks at least twice a week. On top of that, I had a little mishap happen when I was 7, which caused me to suffer from a serious case of xenophobia, fear of food, and I became very skinny and weak all the way until 7th grade. Ever since my first panic attack at school, this was kindergarten, which I guess ruined a fun activity for everyone. I have been bullied, so I had little to no friends. I had one, but they never really stood up for me in fear that they would get bullied too, which was understandable. The teachers didn't favor me much either, seeing as they were the ones who had to calm me down during these attacks. Now, see, this specific teacher is one I had already had an encounter with before this situation happened. It was 2nd grade during winter time, I would say late December. My school refused to let us in the building until 7:15 AM. The door was controlled from the front office inside the school or unlocked with a key only teachers and staff had. Most parents and children are there by 6:45, because they were slow to open the door but quick to lock it on you. Plus, they usually let the bus kids in at 6:50. I had arrived at 6:30 because I had been late literally every day for an entire month, and my parents didn't want me to get in more trouble. It was snowing like there was no tomorrow, and I and a few kids and parents were practically dying out there. Even when the first school bus pulled up, they still haven't opened the door. It was 6:50 by this point, and teachers and staff were just walking past all the freezing kids and into the building, not even sparing us a glance. Soon came 7:10, but they still didn't let us in because the secretary who controlled the front door hadn't arrived yet. A certain teacher starts walking up to the door, and as she's unlocking it, she glances at me and a few other kids, and chuckles. I said something along the lines of, "I don't see how this is funny, we are going to freeze to death out here while you guys get to stay in a warm building." As I said, I was a really quiet kid, so I muttered all this as quietly as possible under my breath, thinking no one heard me. But unfortunately, she did. That's when she starts screaming at me in front of, I'll say, 20 plus kids and 10 plus parents. She yelled at me for a full 3 minutes and went inside the building. Embarrassed, didn't even begin to describe me. Maybe what I said was rude, but her reaction was over the top. I stood there, hiding my face, silently crying and trying my hardest to not have an anxiety attack. All the attention and the scare from the volume and tone in her voice had me incredibly on edge and shaking in my boots. Soon they let everyone in, but the second I got in there, I ran into the bathroom and proceeded out with the attack until I felt like I was okay. To make the situation even worse, she completely fabricated what I said when she told the principal, which he addressed me about. I don't remember most of it, but I do remember the part where she said I was cussing her out. The situation was so severe, I even had to go talk to the school's executive director, write a page-long apology letter, apologize to her in front of my class, which she made me repeat like 5 times because I wasn't loud enough, and got 2 hours detention. Since then, she's treated me like trash, and she even witnessed me getting bullied and teased in the hallway a few times. But instead of helping, she would just walk by, smirking. So all in all, I hated this teacher with a passion. Now on to the main story. I hadn't actually had her as a teacher until I was in 3rd grade. And 4th grade due to unforeseen circumstances, I guess. She was the social studies teacher, and my school used to rotate classes in elementary, so I had her every day in the afternoon. This one time, she left me in so much distress I still can't fathom it to this day. On this specific day, I had her for the last 2 hours of the day, because the teacher for the last hour had an appointment or something. ETM is entitled teacher mom and ETK is entitled teacher's kid. ETM didn't expect to still have us in her class until the end of the day, and she was visibly upset because she usually picked her kid up last period since she didn't have a class. She made a phone call before class, asking someone to bring her kid, which for some reason was allowed. Halfway through our actual period with her, her friend or sister, whoever it was, brought ETM's kid, ETK, to the classroom. He looked younger and was smaller than me, so I assumed he was like 5 or 6. He just got here and he was already annoying as hell. He was yelling throughout our entire lesson and getting up and going through our desk. We were at the rough, sitting in front of the smartboard. We finally got through our lesson and last period came. ETM didn't know what to do with us, so she left everyone to go to the play centers we had in 4 corners around the classroom. She pretty much said we could do whatever as long as we were seated. Once again, I had no friends and no one liked me, so I didn't go to any of the play centers. I never really liked the games there anyway, so I didn't worry about it. I was really anxious that day, so I used one of my methods that helped me de-stress, which was sketching. My sketchbook is my sensory book, and I wasn't the best artist, seeing as I was only 8, but I wasn't bad either. Looking back, I was surprisingly really good for an 8-year-old. I kept all my drawings and sketches in that black sketchbook. My name was etched in the bottom right corner, and I never let anyone touch it. All the kids were gross, and I didn't want them to stain the paper. I'm sure you can guess what happened to me the second they did. Anyway, I sat at my desk and got to sketching. I found a book inside my desk and decided to sketch the cover. It was coming along well, but then ETK decided to sit in the desk that was right next to me, but his desk was turned 90 degrees. So he got a full view of the side of my head. I noticed he was playing on ETM's iPad and he was screaming at his game. I was visibly uncomfortable, but I didn't want to sit at anyone else's desk in fear of upsetting them. 10 minutes later, out of nowhere, ETK slams the iPad down on the table and throws a tantrum on the floor. ETM comes and picks him up, asking him what's wrong. He explains through sobs that the iPad is freezing and he can't play his game because of it. The millisecond those words left his mouth, she turns to me and quite aggressively asks me to fix it. For those who are confused as to why a grown adult is asking an 8-year-old to fix her iPad, I'll explain. My dad was very tech savvy, and from a young age I have been surrounded by technology and given countless lessons on how to maintain my electronics, and to avoid things that can cause them to freeze. I was only 8, so obviously I wasn't smart enough to hack into your ex's phone, but I was able to uninstall desktop programs, fool around with CMD prompt, factory reset, clean and remove viruses, type at a ridiculous speed, etc. I once fixed one of the laptops at school that a kid had completely infected with a virus. Honestly, all I did was uninstall what he downloaded and then uninstall the additional programs the original download added as well. Since then, teachers would call me whenever there was a problem with laptops or tablets. Anyway, I picked up the iPad, which, may I add, was dirty from this kid's food-covered hands. And growing up with a heavily germophobic mother, I was utterly disgusted. I cleaned the screen first before getting to work. The problem was that this kid opened every single app on this iPad before opening the game he was playing at the time. It was lagging so bad I had to hard reboot the iPad to first stop the apps, then close them all. I opened the game he was playing before I fixed the iPad and started it up, making sure everything was working before I give it back. I get up with the iPad and walk over to ETM, who was cradling ETK while he sobbed uncontrollably. I extend my arm to give her the iPad, and before I can even warn/tell her why it froze, she snatched it from my hand, giving me a dirty look and gave it to ETK. He stopped crying immediately and ran back to the desk to go play his game. I walk back to my desk and go back to my sketching. I honestly though, I wouldn't have to deal with him for the rest of the day, but of course this wouldn't be our entitled parents if it ended there. 20 minutes go by, we only have like 30 or so minutes of school left. I was close to finishing my sketch, which came out amazing, and I was super proud of it. I get an uneasy feeling and feel eyes on me. I made the regretful decision of looking up, only to be met with ETK staring daggers into my soul, his eyes flicking between me and my sketchbook. He put the iPad down on the floor right at his feet. I quickly go back to sketching, praying this kid won't talk to me, but of course he did. The conversation went like this. Hello. Hi. What? Hi. What are you drawing? Points to the book. Cool, I want to draw. But you have your iPad, draw on there. I want the book. Sorry, you can't. This is my sketchbook. But it's my turn. There are no turns when it's someone else's things. But I want it. But it's mine. If you want to draw, there is paper over there. I give him one of my pencils and he generously accepts it. I'm thinking he's about to go get some papers and some crayons from the craft corner, but no. This kid with his dirty hands, he was eating cheese puffs, reaches for my sketchbook. I snatch it away, but unfortunately for me, his fingers grazed it and a long, yellow streak sat smack dab in the middle of the sketch. Before I could even react, he lunges at me, stepping on his iPad in the process, which emitted a very loud cracking sound and grabs a hold of my sketchbook. We struggle for a bit and amidst the struggle, he rips a few pages out. I was panicking obviously, but my main focus was to say what I could. I finally get it away from him, clutching it to my chest. He then starts jumping around frantically and screaming, then ultimately throwing himself to the ground as his tantrum escalates. Just so you all know, ETM was watching the whole thing and didn't call off her kid, or even bother to help me. She finally runs over once he starts literally bashing his head on the floor. What's wrong, baby? He won't let me draw. He points to my sketchbook. Me, low-key hyperventilating, he destroyed my sketchbook and... There you go again, why are you so selfish? He just wanted to draw. You never want anyone to touch that stupid book. This is a sensory book, not a coloring book. That's just an excuse. Now look what you did. But I didn't do anything. He attacked me for my sketchbook and you did nothing about it. I saw you watching. She starts turning red in the face. I wasn't very loud. The highest my voice could go is what some people consider an inside voice. I never talked back or talked, period. But this was my sketchbook on the line. Even if it wasn't much, I wanted to put up a little fight. At this point, everyone had stopped what they were doing and watched us. I am completely flustered at this point. I know I did nothing wrong, but I couldn't help but panic. I felt my throat closing up, my heart pounding painfully hard, and tears welling in my eyes. How dare you talk to me like that? You have no reason to be treating my child like this. And then you accuse him of attacking you? You are lying. Look, you even broke his iPad. I didn't do anything. I want the book, mama, please. He wants the book, so give him the book. I didn't even give you permission to take it out. But it's mine, not the school's. You didn't buy it, I did. My mom bought it, but same thing. There you go again, talking back. Clearly you didn't learn from last year. Understand that you are the student and I'm the teacher. Give me the book, ETK just wants to draw. You use it all the time, let him have a turn. She says all this as if it's one of the lip pads or something. I'm trying to choke out words, trying to explain. My throat hurt every time I took a breath. It seemed like no matter what I said, ETM just yelled the same lines at me. He just wanted to draw. He wants your sketchbook, let him have it. Can't you just share? You are selfish. It's already messed up, just give it to him. He deserves it after what you did to him. ETM walks up to me and snatched the sketchbook from my hands. At this point I had no strength whatsoever to fight back. I'm hyperventilating in my spot and holding onto a chair for stabilization. She gives ETK the disheveled sketchbook and he starts going in. He grabs a bunch of crayons from the craft center and starts scribbling over all my sketches, ripping multiple pages from pressing down on the paper way too hard. All the while, ETM was standing right between me and ETK with her back to me, just to make sure I don't try to take it back. I don't even make the attempt as I'm having a full-blown anxiety attack under all the coats on the rack. I don't think I had ever been so distraught, and that would have to have been one of the worst attacks I had ever had. It may not seem like much now, but mind you, I was only 8, so this was absolutely terrifying to me. Even now, when I try to convince myself I was overreacting just a little, I still can't shake the overwhelming feelings from back then. I blacked out a few times in 10 minutes, but she didn't seem to care. Classroom was uncomfortably silent apart from my sobbing, and all the kids were just staring. Some of them tried to go back to what they were doing, but the uncomfortable aura made it impossible to have fun, and they caught themselves just staring again. Even though they didn't like me much, they themselves realized that the situation wasn't fair, as the kid had annoyed them with all his yelling and mayhem as well. The bell rings for us to leave. When we leave school, we sit in line outside the classrooms, divided up into which bus you took. I quickly grab all my stuff, completely drained and emotionless. Everyone just keeps their distance from me, as if they thought I would blow up any second. They quietly watch me grab my stuff and leave the classroom. I sit in my bus line with my head down and just wait for my line to go outside. This is how I usually was, so no one thought anything of it. Fast forward to me getting off the bus, my aunt picks me up. We start walking back home and she notices my mood. She tilts my head up and notices my puffy red eyes. She asked me if I had another anxiety at school. Anxiety is what my family called an anxiety attack, since they found the full term sort of harsh for me to hear all the time. I told her yes, and she asked me why. At first I refused to tell her because I didn't want anyone to go to my school and talk to the teacher. I always tried to avoid confrontation anytime, all the time. But I decided to tell her everything anyway, making her promise me she wouldn't tell anyone. She promised, but she still told my parents. I didn't know this because they never confronted me about it. They did ask me where my sketchbook was, but I lied and said I left it in my desk. The next morning, my dad offered to take me to school. Instead of just dropping me off like usual, he said he wanted to go inside with me. Everything's normal and he leaves me to go to class while he went to go to talk to the secretary. The day is going by smoothly, but I still felt awkward around my classmates due to the events that occurred yesterday, and I was extremely anxious every time I remember I had to go to ETM's class after lunch. I was sitting in my maths class doing my work when the principal, CP is school principal, came to my classroom. He asked if he could borrow me for a second and we stood in the hallway right outside the class. My dad was there with him, and they crouched down to my level and asked me to explain to them what happened yesterday. I barely explained anything before I got so overwhelmed I wasn't even able to talk and started crying. My dad gave me his phone to type out what I wanted to say in his memo pad. I watched their faces as they read over what I had typed, and needless to say, they were pissed. CP tells my dad and me to stay where we are and goes inside my classroom. From outside, I could hear him asking all the students about what happened yesterday in ETM's class. Many of them didn't want to talk because ETM was a very scary teacher despite her petite build, and were scared they would get in trouble if they told. But some of the students did, which caused them all to back me up. You know, some follow the leader type shit. I was grateful to say the least. I mean, they didn't treat me differently from how they used to after all this, and I was still severely bullied. Hell, they even called me a snitch for it. But hey, beggars can be choosers. CP asks the teacher in the classroom if ETM had a class at the moment, aka is she in her room? He said yes, and CP starts walking there, asking us to follow him. I start getting anxious because I honestly and truly did not want to be anywhere near this woman. But my dad and CP assure me that I will be fine. CP knocks on the door and we walk in. I'm hiding behind my dad, trying my best to stay out of sight. CP becomes ETM over to her desk where they start whispering. He points back to me a few times before calling me over. I'm still hiding behind my dad as we slowly make our way over. CP says, ETM says that you took the sketchbook from her son. I shake my head in disbelief, but at the same time I'm not surprised that she lied about it. I calmly and quietly once again explained that it was my sketchbook and that her son attacked and fought me for it while she just stood there watching. She starts getting upset, showing CP the pages her son scribbled on, saying, "See, it's my son's, he colors in it all the time." My dad is getting fed up with her lies at this point and just goes on to expose her. This is that. "That's your son's sketchbook?" "Yes, sir." "And my name, fought your child for it?" "Yes, and he broke my son's iPad." "If that's the case, then why is my name's name on it?" CP and ETM look at the sketchbook confused. My dad flips the book right to the cover and shows them both my name. ETM then tries to accuse me of writing my name in the sketchbook, to which my dad firmly explains that my name is etched into the cover and it's not pen or marker. ETM realizes she's been caught in her first lie, and then tries to change the subject and bring up the iPad again. CP then explains that according to multiple students, the iPad broke because her son stepped on it, not because of me. You can see the fear and redness on ETM's face once she realizes there is no way out of this. CP forces her to apologize to me and my dad for all the emotional and physical distress she caused me. It was really half-assed, but I didn't care. I just really wanted to get out of there. She was forced to compensate for my sketchbook, which was actually surprisingly expensive, at least to me. CP also apologized for the whole situation and promised to do something about her as soon as possible. My dad decided to dismiss me from school early, and when I got home, I was lectured on how I should tell my parents these things and not hide it. I didn't see ETM for the rest of the year. It was only the third quarter, almost fourth. So we all thought she was fired, though unfortunately it wasn't the end. The year after, in 4th grade, I found out she will be my science teacher. The one we had quit 4 months into the school year, and she ended up being her replacement. She didn't acknowledge me and only ever said my name or looked in my direction when she was doing attendance or counting heads during fire drills and lockdowns. Obviously I couldn't care less, and I made it through the year without any problems with her. There was one time she brought her demon seed, ETK, back to the school. He recognized me and pointed a finger at me, about to yell something, but ETM covered his mouth and told him to be quiet. It's been 7 years since the incident, and while I transferred schools last year because my therapist thought it would be best for me, I'm still scared from everything that has happened while I attended, especially that incident. I try not to think about it since it brings me much discomfort, but I wanted to know other people's opinions on it. Sorry that it was so long, but honestly I just had to share my story about this r/EntitledParents, an absolute nightmare teacher. Wow, so yeah, this was a pretty long story, probably the longest story I will ever read. But yeah, in my opinion, like, I'm a teacher. I have never been like an elementary teacher or anything. I am a college teacher, but I will never abuse power like that. Like, I mean, that's just like, no, don't do that. Oh, and also this dude says that this happened 7 years ago when he was 8, so right now he's 15 and he writes like this. Wow, he writes super well for his age, I think, so maybe in the future he could write a book or something. But before we go, I want to share a story, a similar story that it didn't happen to me, it happened to a friend of mine in elementary. So this was probably around the year 2000 or so, and the Pokemon craze was at the highest point. And here in Mexico, they usually sell, well, not usually, not anymore, but in the past, whenever you bought a bag of chips like, I don't know, Lay's or Doritos or whatever, they had a Pog in them. You remember Pogs? Like Alf Pogs? They call them tazos in Spanish. But anyway, I like to collect them, and a lot of friends also did. And the cool thing is that there was a tazo, well, there was a Pog for every single Pokemon of the first generation. Like, I'm not sure Mew was in it, but I'm pretty sure there was one tazo for each Pokemon of the original 150. So anyway, basically what happened is that, of course, we weren't allowed to play with them in the classroom, right? That's obvious. But in a nutshell, a teacher caught a friend of mine playing in the classroom, and she confiscated the Pogs, and she never gave them back. And rumor has it, well, it wasn't a rumor, like, this guy had probably like every Pokemon, like he had all the 150. And then a day later, this teacher's son starts bragging about how he finally completed the collection. So yeah, you guess what happened, right? Guys and girls listening, as I was editing this, we finally reached the 2000 subscribers, which is amazing. Wow. But this video is already long enough as it is, so well, bye. Girls and guys, I would love to hear your comments about this subreddit community. Also comment on what subreddit I should do next. As always, a like, comment and share is greatly appreciated. And please subscribe if you like the content. Bye!